John Fetterman has been facing heat over the past few weeks, in part for his support for Israel, but now because of his stance on immigration policies. Now, this is somebody who ran his campaign as a progressive, but he and his staff are trying to distance himself from that label. He told NBC News, "I'm not a progressive. I just think I'm a Democrat that is very committed to choice and other things. But with Israel, I'm going to be on the right side of that, and immigration is something near and dear to me, and I think we do have to effectively address it as well." He says he's in favor of policies that restrict the flow of migration, breaking with progressives who oppose new limits on asylum. And this comes at a time where Trump-era immigration policies are being proposed by Republicans as coupled with military funding for Israel, Ukraine, and Taiwan. Telling NBC News, the senator added that while it's not ideal to have this conversation about asylum and parole policy in connection with an aid package for Israel and Ukraine, it's still one that we should have, given that Republicans have made it an essential condition to advance the supplemental bill. Progressives better do that, because we can't leave Israel, we can't sell them out, and we can't sell Ukraine out, and we have to deliver on this. I just would like very much to get a deal to deliver this critical aid. Now, his staunch support for Israel in particular has angered a lot of people at him, but Fetterman Chief of Staff Adam Gentleson said the senator has always had the policy positions he's espousing today. Even though Republicans wanted to paint him as a socialist in 2022, and some folks on the left are pretending, he has since changed his beliefs. He's just being consistent. He spent the entire campaign telling people he wasn't a down-the-line lefty. It's true he campaigned as an outsider, but let's actually take a look at how he described himself. Here from 2020. "My dude, I'm a progressive Democrat."
Oops.
You know, that could mean anything. Here's another one. "We have started a progressive movement here in Pennsylvania."
Oh.
A lot of room for interpretation there. And finally, hashtag TBT 2009. Progressive rhetoric is great, but progressive results are 100 emoji.
Well, no, to be fair, he just took out the one. Now there is zero because now he's in Washington. So, like, I don't get it. Why are you guys confused? Once you get to Washington, you get comfortable. And then once you're comfortable, you put on a nice hoodie and you pretend to be a populist. And then you say, oh, yeah, progressive. Who said progressive? I never heard of the thing. I don't know what you're talking about. Look, this one's actually complicated. So if you ask me, number one, you're allowed to have different opinions on different issues. So if you think, hey, you know what? I think that immigration is a real issue and I've got different solutions for it. And some might be leaning progressive, some might be considered conservative or moderate. Okay, no problem. We say on this show all the time, open minds, open hearts, like let's talk things through, and if you got a different proposal, no problem. Saying he's on the right side of the issue on Israel, well, we agree to disagree, okay? But Adam Gentleson, his chief of staff, is right. He has been consistent on that in the campaign. There's this big moment where we all waited to see what he was gonna say on Israel because AIPAC and Democratic Majority for Israel were attacking other progressive Democrats. And he came out with a statement saying, Israel can do no wrong. And then AIPAC, et cetera, did not spend the money. He won the primary, he won the general election. I thought, well, maybe he's just being pragmatic and it's okay as long as he's balanced. He doesn't have to be like, oh my God, only pro-Palestinian side or anything like that, but be balanced when he's in office. But he has not been balanced. He's been 200% on the side of Israel, even as we have now seen endless war crimes, right? So, but to me, all of these things, you could say, hey, look, we got friends and allies who are on different sides of the Israel issue, et cetera. But the most telling to me was something that no one else is talking about. So now Fetterman has taken on the role of bashing any Biden opponent within the Democratic Party. So when Dean Phillips, a congressman from Minnesota, started running against Biden, it's Fetterman that's being quoted in all the articles saying, how dare he oppose our leader? Oh, no. Okay, so that's him saying, I got super comfortable in Washington. Whatever leadership wants, I'm not a progressive anymore. I'm not anything I pretended to be on the campaign trail. The only thing I have left from those days is the hoodie. But I'm here to serve the establishment. Okay, well, Message delivered, message heard and received. We got you, brother. So join the long list of sellouts who are just sitting there to get fame and status and privilege. And he probably thinks this is a sophisticated way of running in 2028. All they care about is 20. Guys, we might not have a 2028. Anyways, so I'm done with Fetterman, not in that, hey, I never won his vote. I think he's the worst. No, but like in having hope in my heart that someone could actually be, and this is the most important part. It's not about being progressive or even populist, that someone in Washington could be authentic. I was hoping that he was the one guy who was authentic, and now those hopes have been dashed. Brett, what do you think?
So I like Fetterman as a senator, and because so infrequently as a senator do you learn new stuff about someone. Because they usually have been in there for 50, 60 years and there's nothing new. With Fetterman, I'm learning new things about him as a member of the greatest deliberative body ever, birthed forth on this planet. I think, listen, when people say progressive, one of the biggest challenges is to define the word. For me, progressivism means ground rules. It means making rules so that people who have less power are not taken advantage of by people with more power who can get a hold of that power, writing the rules effectively. In a state like Pennsylvania, usually that means you get people who have their jobs secure against any kind of outsourcing, any kind of, you want to have like a unionized workforce when it comes to manufacturing and steel production, like traditionally in Pennsylvania. And that's something that I think it's useful to see what a person from there says and how they position themselves. And I think also one of the reasons that when you look at Fetterman, he is very useful. He is potentially very useful to the Biden administration because he is a guy who just won in Pennsylvania. So did Biden, but you're gonna need someone there on the ground to fight for you. And Fetterman, when I do say I like him, it's also part of not being a super known quantity on the national stage is that people really do judge you by appearance and affect. And Fetterman a lot of people gravitated toward him because he had the appearance and the affect of someone who's just like, I don't give a crap. I'm gonna fight for normal people. And the question is he delivering that or not? And when it comes to, he's just defining, I guess, normal people as normal people by his definition within the borders of the United States when it comes to immigration.
I also think we should distinguish what he is supporting here on immigration policy, because like we were talking about before the show, these are things that liberals came out in droves to oppose during the Trump administration. That's the deal. They want funding for Israel, Ukraine, and Taiwan, and in exchange, Republicans want a reinstitution of Trump-era immigration policies. He's not saying, oh, this is a tough deal. He's saying, yeah, I'm on board. That's two totally different things. So it's not just that he's not a progressive. He's not even taking the liberal stance on this. If you remember in 2018, there was a nationwide day of protest in opposition to Trump's immigration policies. That was a rallying cry in the midterms and in 2020. In part, beyond Trump's chaos, people were deeply outraged over his immigration policies. Reinstituting that is an abandonment of things that Biden ran on in 2020 that people expected him to be better on. You can distinguish those two as a senator, but he's not doing that. He's saying, oh yeah, I think this is an important conversation we should have. We should do this. That's so much different than saying I'm not a progressive.
Yeah, so look, you could put all those things together. So first he says, I'm a progressive 100 progressive, right? Now he says, I'm not at all a progressive. Okay, and now that's where Adam Jensen is wrong. That's clearly a change, a massive change, at least in terms of how he labels himself. Then number two, he doesn't just leave it at that. He then becomes an establishment hatchet man, going around attacking anybody who might run against Democratic leaders, etc. That's volunteering. That's taking an extra step, saying, "Who would you like me to attack on behalf of the establishment?" I mean, that's an extra mile against progressives or anyone else. And then okay, all right. Well, then what do you stand for? If you come back and say, look, of course I don't agree with the Republicans on immigration, but this is my immigration stance. It might not match the progressive one or the liberal one or whatever it is, but it's mine, and here's why I defend it. I can say, okay, I'm open to it. I'm willing to hear that out. I think it's a tough and complicated issue, but he's not saying that. He's saying now we're going past the establishment Democrats to kind of agreeing with the Republicans on not just immigration being a problem, but their policies on immigration. Now we're in weird like 180 totally inauthentic land, right? So that's what I'm saying. It's not about what his policies are. If his policies were authentic, then I could say, okay, no problem. We could debate that. I could agree with something, disagree with others. I'm not going to write you off. But like, what we're worried about is now it's beginning to look like maybe he's a fraud. And so, okay, what do you stand for? He said, well, I'm not a progressive. I'm for choice and other things. Brother, that ain't it. So choice and other things is not a defining platform. That's basically saying, I don't really care what the issues are. I know choice polls really well, right? And other things, I don't want to define them in case I change my mind later, because it turns out I'm just a regular politician.
And that's total running for president. Like that is, you're just like, they put the feelers out. You see like Newsom is sending me these emails somehow that are like, I'm in Tennessee right now. I'm in Alabama right now. It is.
What are you doing there?
Nothing. Not doing nothing. Yeah. So, but I think that whole thing of packaging them together is something that if Gates has power within the Republican Party, and he did because he got rid of the speaker and replaced him with his other guy, and the other guy kind of how much sway does Gates have? Gates was talking about like selectively packaging some things together, but then also splitting things off and getting them voted on individually. That calculus is basically saying, all right, choose. Fetterman, maybe he's brilliant. Maybe he's looking at that and being like, I don't think most Americans actually care about immigration. I think if you ask them secretly, most Americans will be like, well, if it's my job or someone from another country, it's my job first. And the thing that and then completely it's still a global issue. It still has to do with people outside who originate from outside these borders when it comes to funding. That's the thing that's like in the news that people are still rallying around, according to Fetterman. If his calculation is based on Pennsylvania politics and national optics, yes. But if it is being the hatchet man for the Biden administration, we'll see how it plays out. I don't know what the answer to that is, but I do think that most Americans were mad about immigration when Trump was in office because they thought Trump was evil and they galvanized around that as one instance of it, and Trump was just too much. But when it comes to Biden, I think a lot of people are willing to kind of, with like they do with Black Lives Matter, just kind of like, I'm going to step away from that for now.
Yeah, well, let's see how supporting Biden and Trump policies turn out for him. When he was populist and kicking ass, he actually supported policies that were popular but that Washington didn't like. Now that he's switching to policies that Washington loves and the rest of the country hates, good luck with that. I know that sounds like brilliant political strategy in Washington, but out here in the districts, that sounds like you just sold out.
Thanks for watching. If you become a member, you get to watch all this ad-free, except for, of course, this ad. Still, hit the join button below.